So just like basketball, Tractor Supply knows that a winning season takes practice, teamwork, and a can-do attitude. It's Bracket Challenge season, and the Fox Sports Radio Bracket Challenge is live. Be sure to complete your bracket at foxsportsradio.com right now. The winning bracket in the Fox Sports Radio Bracket Challenge will win a $2,500 gift card to Tractor Supply, and a perfect bracket will win you $1 million. So fill out your bracket now on Tractor Supply's portion of this on foxsportsradio.com. It's up till this Thursday morning. So Thursday morning, that's the cutoff point. Don't do what I did a few years back where I was trying to fill out my bracket, and I got about halfway through and realized, oh, it's 9 o'clock Pacific time. The other half of my bracket won't count now. Just get it done now, but you have until Thursday morning before the games begin. So visit foxsportsradio.com to register, to get rules, and to fill out your bracket. It's all sponsored by Tractor Supply for life out here. So again, congratulations to the 99-cent store of the NFL, the Cincinnati Bengals, who have figured out a way to hand out some contracts. Jordan Schultz reporting last night, the Bengals have reached agreement on contracts with wide receivers Jamar Chase and T. Higgins. Jamar Chase gets 4 years, $161 million with $112 million guaranteed, making him the highest paid non-quarterback in NFL history. T. Higgins gets 4 years, $115 million with the first 2 years guaranteed, making him the highest paid wide receiver 2 in NFL history. So congratulations, the Cincinnati Bengals. They've knocked out 2 of the 3. What this means for Trey Hendrickson, who knows? But Joe Burrow has called out the organization. He's made it a point. Listen, Philly can figure out ways to get all these deals done and keep their guys. You know, like they somehow figured out a way to make all this happen, and the Bengals keep 2 of their big 3, and now we wait to see whether or not they can get something done with Trey Hendrickson.
Now all they have to do is address a few needs, probably across the offensive line. But, I mean, if you look at these 2 signings, it's this very critical to the Cincinnati Bengals' ability and their opportunity to keep the window open for trying to compete for a Super Bowl championship. I think these are really, really big signings, quality signings. You had to do it, at least for Chase. Now, with T. Higgins, that does show growth. Obviously, that could be, as you mentioned, the pressure from Joe Burrow, but make no mistake about it. If you're putting your team in a real opportunity, a real position to win games, knowing that these are both one receivers, these could be one receivers on any single team in the National Football League. So I think that you got it right here. Now, what they do with Hendrickson, you got to have defense. I mean, especially in the AFC North, you got to have defense. And if you're not going to bring back Trey Hendrickson, you definitely have a case to say we spend our money on the offensive side and we're going to work to be serviceable on the defensive side. But if it turns out that your defense is your Achilles heel moving forward, it will come back to bite you that you let key players, key pieces of your defense get away like Hendrickson. So, not exactly sure. And by the way, what is it? Hubbard? Is it Hubbard or Hubert? Hubbard was the other defensive end. He just retired. So you're losing basically the backbone of what I would perceive your defensive front. You're losing that. And so while signing these large contracts to the quarterback, to now both your big-time receivers, what are you doing to address your defense? I think that now that turns into the biggest project for Cincinnati this offseason is to try to figure out how to retool that defense because unless, I mean, listen, What did Burrow throw for over 5,000 yards?
Oh,
he was dealing out there, and it still wasn't good enough for them to even make the playoffs. So you're going to have a defense. If you think that signing these contracts means that you're going to score more points than your opponents while your defense is very, very porous in nature, I don't think that is certainly not the correct way to approach going into the season, especially if you want to take full advantage of the fact that you do now have some at least 2 years of trying to make things work with your offense with Burrow and these receivers.
I mean, listen, at least they got it done. Like, we were wondering whether or not this was going to be happening at all for the Bengals. So at least
that's fair enough.
At least they showed some promise that they're trying to figure this whole thing out. I'm just doing some quick math here because I wanted to make sure that I had this correct. And before I say that, I want to say what Jeremy Fowler of ESPN reported over the weekend, that on the Trey Hendrickson conversation. So he wants a new contract well above $30 million per year, according to Jeremy Fowler. The Bengals have tried to sign him. They made him a contract offer, and I'm even told, despite trade talks, they've had some reignited discussions with Hendrickson's people over the past few days, but it still hasn't gotten anywhere. It looks like the Bengals' priorities are those 2 wide receivers, which they got done. So he's certainly open to a trade at this point. I'm hearing the Bengals have not been overly eager to accept those trade calls, and they've gotten them to look into it and really seriously entertain a trade here. It seems like they still want to try and find a way to keep Trey Hendrickson, but the question is, do they have the cash to do it? If you're the Bengals, here's the reality. Trey Hendrickson, just to show you the value he has on that team, last year had 17.5 sacks.
It's a lot.
All right. Everybody else on the Bengals combined had 18.5. So, I feel like he's kind of showing you that there's a wide gap between him and everybody else as a pass rusher on that team. And when you're one of the bottom third teams in sacks in the NFL, and that guy makes up basically half of your entire team total, I know that the wide receivers were a priority. They got to figure out a way to try and get this done. I don't know how get creative, call Howie Roseman. Hey, how would you do it if they decide to move on?
Why
from
would
him,
Howie Roseman tell them?
Well, I'm just saying, if they decide to move on from Trey Hendrickson, but decide to keep the 2 wide receivers, you open yourself up to criticism from your fan base and people in the league if Hendrickson goes elsewhere, and you're just basically going to have to try and win shootouts.
You got to win shootouts. I mean, I don't even think Trey Hendrickson, clearly, even his 17 sacks didn't make things better. It didn't make it worse, of course. I mean, obviously, production is production. You can never be mad at production, but this defense needs to be, again, kind of tooled in a way where it can have some real success. How far away they are from that, I'm not certain, but if you're dealing on the offensive side the way that they just did, and getting these 2 receivers signed at the same time to 2 really, really big contracts, the biggest contracts, then you got to be thinking we don't have a whole lot of time. You don't have a whole lot of time. So you got to continue to be aggressive. If you're just aggressive in getting your offense to where they need to be, and that's what your focus is on, and purely that's it, and you're just going to be looking at the defense as it's just a part of the full machine. I think you've terribly underestimated the value of what having good defense and having elite defensive players on your team, what that's like. So it could be a hard lesson. It could be. I mean, whatever it is they want to get done, they got to get it done. So I'm interested to see how the GM and how this scouting group, what it is that they do in order to address their biggest hole and their biggest need, which is their defense. Their defense has to be better against the pass. It has to be better against the run. It has to be better overall. And you have one shining piece of one shining part of your defense, and that's Hendrickson, and now he may not be coming back. So they got a lot of work to do, even though it's one side of the ball, but they still have a lot of work to do. But give them credit where credit is due. They did open up their, loosened up the purse string, so to speak, in order to bring in or bring back two very elite receivers in the league. We
kind of mentioned this a little bit last week. There's teams in the NFL that look at the Bengals and go, "You want to trade? Like not actually trade, but like
your team.
Yeah, you want to trade spots?
Yeah, give me your roster.
Please, we would love if our problem was we've got Joe Burrow. Now we've got to figure out a way to keep three of the best players at their position in the NFL.
We've got Joe Burrow. We need to build everything else up so that we can, like, if you look at Kansas City, they built that defense up. The defense has been known to bail that team out, even if Patrick Mahomes is Patrick Mahomes. That has happened.
That's the part that's frustrating about watching this whole thing play out with Cincinnati. It's like, dude, you have this window here and these windows close fast. Like, ask the Niners. Ask Niner fans how they feel about their window right now. Like, these windows close fast. You got to a Super Bowl. You got one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL. He's on the short list. You look at Joe Burrow, you're like, yeah, that guy's probably going to be a Hall of Famer. Like, that's the way his career is projecting at this point. You've got all of this at your disposal. Like, whatever it takes, get crafty, splurge a little bit, set up a sponsorship with Skyline and try and,
why does it keep being Skyline?
Because I don't know. What's the other one? Gold Coast?
I don't know. Why has it got to be chili?
I don't know. That's what they're known for, apparently. Listen, Cincinnati's known for three things: the Bengals, Skyline Chili, and Andy Furman. And that's it, in no particular order.
No order.
So whatever you need to do, just figure out a way to keep three of the best players at their position in the NFL. Like the Carson Palmer situation. Like, there has been times throughout the course of their career. Corey Dillon left on bad terms. Like, there's been times throughout the course of their franchise's history where they have mismanaged because they've nickel and dimed. I'm sure TJ Houshmandzadeh's got stories where they've nickel and dime great players that they've had and probably blown opportunities to compete for Super Bowls more often. You have your chance now. Don't F it up.